What's up everyone, it's Sendoh, and over the last few days the famous trust factor message has made a return inside CS2 when we play with friends. This message existed in CSGO and in certain moments of CS2, but for some reason it hadn't appeared for a very long time. Nobody was seeing the warning anymore when playing with a friend who had a lower trust factor. In fact, just yesterday while queuing for a match I got the warning myself, the first time I've seen it in years. Some people are speculating that maybe all this time trust factor was turned off and that's why we've been running into so many cheaters in matches. But in my opinion, I think the game simply didn't want to tell us when our trust factor was in bad shape. That's why today we're going to talk about this system, how to check your trust factor and also how to improve it. Let's go! If you like opening Counter-Strike cases, Keydrop is the place for you. Take part in all kinds of exciting case battles, open themed cases, and complete seasonal event passes. If you use the code sendoh, you'll get a 20% bonus on deposits plus a 50-cent bonus if it's your first time. You can pay with all kinds of cards or even with your own skins. And that's not all. By using my code, you also get access to huge giveaways with thousands of dollars in prizes. Keydrop is only for players over 18, so always play responsibly and with money you can afford to lose. Let's start with the basics. What exactly is trust factor? Basically, it's an internal system Valve uses to determine how safe a Steam account is for matchmaking in CS2. In other words, based on parameters that are completely secret, it analyzes whether the person queuing might be a cheater or a very problematic player. Depending on the level of trust factor you have, you'll find matches faster or slower. The game will always try to pair you with people of a similar trust level, so if you have a really good trust factor, you'll usually find players like you, those who aren't toxic, and theoretically there should be fewer cheaters. I say theoretically because even with CS2's anti-cheat, a lot of cheaters still slip through. We can divide trust factor into three categories. The best trust factor is green. This means your account is in great standing, you don't cause problems, and you're considered a reliable player. This is exactly the kind of player cheaters love to queue with, because then they can play in matches where most others aren't cheating. In my case, this is my trust factor. I've had my Steam account for more than 11 years. I've been playing Counter-Strike since 2015 and I haven't had any major issues except for the occasional 30-minute competitive cooldown. I own many Steam games, I have a decent inventory, I've spent money on the game. Basically what you'd consider your average Steam user, not just someone who only plays CS, but someone who plays lots of games. When you start playing CS2 on a new account, the game will automatically place you in the yellow trust factor. That's because it doesn't yet have enough information about you to know whether you'll be problematic or a cheater. Having yellow trust factor isn't the end of the world, but it's not ideal either. You'll run into more new accounts using cheats, trolls who get reported a lot, or people with some competitive cooldowns on record. Later in this video I'll explain how to move out of yellow trust factor. Finally, the worst trust factor of all is red. This means Valve has flagged you as very problematic, or there are high indicators that you're cheating. Your matchmaking experience will be heavily affected. That means when you queue, you'll face tons of cheaters, almost one every match, or players with a large number of reports and cooldowns. If you're in this red trust factor state, let me tell you, you're in big trouble. Getting out of it is very hard. It requires a ton of hours played without causing a single issue. Let me explain more in detail. To improve trust factor, there are a lot of secret parameters and even the community isn't 100% sure about all of them. But there are some obvious factors that make sense. For starters, Valve tends to trust accounts that spend money on CS2 or on Steam games in general, so for a typical player it's normal to open a case once in a while, buy a viewer pass, purchase skins on the Steam market, and just generally show interest in the game. It also helps if you play other Steam games in your free time. It's not the same as a completely new account with no skins and only playing CS2 suspiciously, compared to someone who has years on their account, owns some skins, even cheap ones, and plays a variety of games. It might sound a bit pay to win. The average CS2 player doesn't just stick to one game. They try a bit of everything and they don't mind occasionally opening a case or a sticker capsule. Another very important thing for improving trust factor is not getting reports or cooldowns. It sounds obvious, but the fewer problems you cause, the better. Of course, having one good game where enemies report you isn't enough to drop your trust factor. It's something that accumulates over time. It's not the same to get reported one day versus being reported every day for weeks. That's when Valve might start doubting you. Occasional 30-minute cooldowns aren't a big deal either, but when you start stacking up multiple hour or even day-long bans, that's when your trust factor can slip into yellow or even red. One trick that even cheaters recommend, and we can use it too, is to play a lot of wingman mode. In wingman, people don't tend to report as much as in competitive or casual. They say that if you're in red trust factor, it can take more than 100 wingman games to climb back up even a little. That's why I suggest not messing around too much in your games. Also, over-reporting too many people or kicking too many players in a short time will also lower your trust factor. In fact, if you kick too many people within just a few days, you can even get a competitive cooldown. So think twice before you kick someone. In general, we could say that if you're a low conflict player, spend some money on the game and don't get a ton of reports, your account can easily reach green trust factor. There's just one case where it's extremely difficult to get out of red trust factor, and that's if you get a back life suspension. When CS2's anti-cheat detects a high likelihood of cheating, you'll get an automatic 31-day suspension. Once it ends, either you'll get permanently banned or you'll be placed in a trust level even worse than red. That means only matches against blatant cheaters, and another long suspension at the slightest problem. If you've ever played with a friend who was cheating and you got banned alongside them, well, you'd better start praying that your trust factor might one day rise to yellow. Now that we understand all this, the next big question is, how can I check my trust factor? Well, now that it's visible again, we can check it with friends. If you queue with a friend and no warning appears, it means you're either both green trust factor or at least you're in the exact same category. If you queue with a friend in yellow trust factor, you'll get a yellow warning saying your friend's trust factor is slightly lower than yours, and that matchmaking may be slightly affected. If you queue and a red warning pops up, the game will tell you your experience will be heavily affected, which means longer queue times and almost certainly cheaters in your matches. There's also another method, the Find Players tab. If you open it and see 20 players all with Prime enabled, it means your account has green trust factor. If you see 20 or fewer players and some without Prime, you're in yellow. If you see very few players and most don't have Prime or look like weird accounts, then your trust factor is red. These are the only indicators we have to check our account status. There's no website that can show you your exact trust factor. These are confidential numbers from Valve, and it's very likely we'll never know exactly how to get a perfect trust factor. In conclusion, if you're not a toxic player, you don't get too many reports, and you avoid competitive cooldowns, reaching green trust factor isn't too difficult. I hope you enjoyed the video. As always, any CS2 news you'll find right here on the channel. I'm Sendoh signing off for now. See you!